Aloha and welcome to Action Island. I am Gilles Gallant. I am joined by Nick Giffen and Chris Raybon. We're here to give you a gift for this Christmas slate in the NFL. We got three games on tap. We've got the Dallas Cowboys facing the Washington Commanders, the Detroit Lions against the Minnesota Vikings, and the Denver Broncos taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. It is the third string bowl for today for this game with all these quarterbacks that we're going to be seeing here. But normally there's four of us, but instead what we're going to do, the three of us, we're going to build a three-leg parlay that we could sweat for all the Christmas Day matchups. So here's what we do: the three of us, we give our two favorite bets from any game on this slate. Then we'll take a vote on those picks to decide which parlay leg is going to stay or which one gets kicked off the island. And if we have a tie, well, whoever gave out the pick, they could be the tiebreaker and they can decide which one is going to be the pick of the same game parlay. By the end of the show, we should have a three-leg parlay, maybe even a six-leg parlay once we actually go through all these picks. But as we give them out, we're going to be dropping links in the YouTube chat that'll help you quickly get this bet because some of these lines, they could move fast, and we want to make sure you get the best prices and the best numbers. So we start with Dr. Nick Giffen. And Nick, I'm seeing two player props for today. No luck rankings, games, or sides or totals for this one?
There is actually. If you check out my article on actionnetwork.com, this is a plus luck side for the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos, Kansas City being the unlucky team. But that's not my pick for this game. So let's get to it. My first pick for Action Island is in that game, but I'm going to go to Denver Broncos quarterback Bo Nix to go over 13.5 rushing yards. And I mean, if you guys have been following me all year, you know, anytime I have a quarterback that's capable of running the ball against either Kansas City, Tampa Bay, or New York Jets, I'm very often looking at their over on their rushing yards. Kansas City is a high scramble rate defense. They play a lot of two high safety looks, which is one less man in the box. They play a lot of man coverage. Now, I do think they'll play more zone versus Bo Nix because that's what you do against Bo Nix. You try to play zone coverage against him, but that just means a lot of two high zone shells where they can, stay in coverage. I don't think Kansas City is going to blitz Nix much because Bo Nix has an 8-to-1 touchdown interception ratio against the blitz. Earlier this year, Kansas City didn't blitz him so much. I think they're going to stick to that plan. And quarterbacks tend to scramble less versus the blitz. If you look overall in the season as a whole, 1.5% less scramble rate versus the blitz than when extra men aren't sent. So if you have Kansas City sitting back in coverage, and then they generate a lot of nice pressure with their front four, and Kansas City is a high pressure rate team, what that's going to do is it's going to force Nix to scramble. So I like Bo Nix to go over 13.5 rushing yards is my first pick.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see what kind of defense they use, especially because with Trent McDuffie, they obviously would try to use as much man coverage as possible. But already DMP practice started off the week, so I'm not sure if he's going to even make it to this matchup. So Bo Nix over 13.5 rushing yards. That is Nick's first pick. Where are we going with the next one?
Yeah, for my second pick, I am going to go to the Dallas Cowboys Washington Commanders game, your team versus my team, Gilles. And sadly, we're both eliminated. But
Yeah, no
I'm going to
bad blood
go,
though.
yeah, exactly. I'm going to go to Dallas running back Javonte Williams over 1.5 receptions. That was my fault for the graphic on, I think it says 2.5, but over 1.5 receptions. You can get that best line out there minus 140. He has cleared 1.5 receptions in 9 of 15 games. I like to use that as a starting point. That's 60%, which would be minus 150 odds. But I think this is a really good spot here. Since week 10, which is the week after Marshawn Lattimore went down with an injury for the Commanders have been the fourth most zone heavy team in the NFL if you remove one outline game in week 15 against Jackson Dart. Every other game since week 10, they have been a very high zone heavy team and a very high two high safety team as well, the highest in the NFL since week 10. And then also, since Lattimore's been out, the Commanders have allowed 4.5 targets per game and 3.5 receptions per game to backfield aligned players, whereas before Lattimore was out, it was 3.3 targets per game and 2.8 receptions per game. So if you're looking at season-long stats, it's not going to do you any good here for the Commanders against running backs because they're a completely different defense since week 10. So you got to really look at since week 10 splits. Also, great, schematic matchup for Javonte Williams. He has his target share more than double versus zone coverage than man coverage. 17% of routes targeted versus zone versus 7% versus man. and also more than doubles versus 2 high safety looks, 19% compared to just 9% per route versus single high safety looks. So absolutely great schematic matchup here with Washington being a top 5 zone and the number 1 2 high safety team. And hey, I've laddered this all the way up to 5+ receptions. He's going to probably get them in bunches, hopefully early, because Dallas probably will be leading later on in this game.
I do like that angle. I mean, right now it's plus 230 I'm seeing right now for 3 receptions, plus 600 for 4, up to 12 to 1 for 5 receptions. So, yeah, great matchup for Javonte Williams, and we're just asking for him to get 2. So, Javonte Williams over 1.5 receptions. That is the second pick from Nick. So that's the 2 bets. He's looking at Bo Nix over 13.5 rushing yards or Javonte Williams to have 2 or more catches. So, Raybon, we got to decide which leg are we going to, let's take a vote. All right, Raybon, I just went with Bo Nix. What'd you end up doing?
Bo Nix,
All
baby.
right. All right, Bo Nix. I mean, I think we like the Javonte pick, but yeah, Bo Nix. I think you broke it down pretty good. That's a pretty good matchup for him. But I do think that the Javonte Williams one, we'll be hearing more about that here in a little bit as well. All right, Raybon, you're up. And when I saw this first pick that you got, I had to do a double take. I had to check different sports books just to make sure that this was a real line and it existed. Please tell us, what is the first bet that you like for the Christmas Day slate?
Yeah, you probably want to bet this now because I think this is a bad line. Josh Johnson under 22.5 rushing yards. Yeah. Okay, so dude is 39 years old. He hasn't rushed for 20 or more yards since 2018, including the preseason. Because when I saw this, I was like, wait a minute. So I had to go back to the preseason and look it up because he obviously plays more. His high in the 2020s is 18. He did it in a backup game. I think he came in with the Jets against the Colts in a very high scoring game. He has 34 rushing yards combined over the last 5 preseasons, and he plays like every game in the preseason. And this year, 2025, he scrambled once on 45 dropbacks. So this number is essentially coming from, he last really started multiple games in 2018, and he was running more then. And so his, average, if you go back to like 2009 to 2018, is in the 20s, but he was a young man then. He's 39. Yeah. Like, this dude is not just going. And I know Dallas has given up some production to quarterbacks, but that's because they face like every single rushing quarterback that there is. Like, I think Daniels and Mariota both had 30+ yards in a game against them. And so like their numbers are kind of skewed, but Josh Johnson, I have his median closer to 10 rushing yards. So this is just, I think this is way too high for Josh Johnson.
All right, 22.5 rushing yards. Raybon, before we ask you about the second one, you kind of just broke it down of what you think the median is. So if you saw like a 16.5 or a 17.5 out there, would you still feel comfortable taking the under on that one?
I think the number the books post that should have been what his longest rush is, which is like 10.5, 11.5 at some spots. That should be his median rushing number in my his median rushing yardage in my in my opinion, because I just think that he's like you can't really use his sample size from like a decade ago to set his prop for 2025.
Well, what I think my favorite part of the cap, and again, I feel like Nick and I were taking shrapnel from a elder statesman standpoint, is that you said he was a young man then at 32.
I mean, no shade. It's just like, come on, like we know these guys will get like a one scramble per season like this, like to get to this. Like we saw Stafford have like one game where he had like a scramble. Right. Cousins, like one game he had a good, you know what I mean? But like if you're talking about a median rushing prop, like for a 39-year-old quarterback who was, like a mediocre runner to begin with, I think it's too high.
All right, so Josh Johnson under 22.5 rushing yards, even the 16.5, 17.5, we're feeling real good about the under on Josh Johnson, who is a young 39 years old. I just want to say that. All right, next pick, Raybon, what do you like?
Let's stay in the same game. I'm going Deebo Samuel, 60+ receiving yards. You can get that at around plus 194. And it kind of goes with the Johnson cap a little bit. I don't expect him to scramble as much as Mariota and Daniels have been. So that is going to potentially increase the amount of pass attempts to go around in the game, because Dallas usually puts up points against Washington in that defense. So this could be a trailing game script for a good while of the game for Washington. And he has some escalators that I think, might as well try to reach. 61 receiving yards gets him another 250K, and then 2 more receptions gets him 450K. So you're probably going to need 2 receptions to get to 61 receiving yards anyway. So just going over the 60 plus, I think is a pretty good number at, close to 2-1. He's done this 5 times in a game, and the Dallas defense gives up the most receiving yards to wide receivers in the NFL, 174.3 per game. Dallas defense against number 2 wide receivers specifically, 31st in the NFL in DVOA, according to FTN. They give up the 3rd most schedule adjusted receiving yards per game to number 2 wide receivers. And their cornerback room is really decimated. So it makes a lot of sense. Like, they can't really take away anybody, but they especially can't take away more than one guy. And that guy, if they even try or are able to, would be Terry McLaurin. So I think Debo's in a good spot here.
And I think, too, the one thing I just wanted to bring up, because we see a lot of incentive content, you know what I mean, at this time of year and whatever else. And last week, I felt like it was almost too early. It was like, okay, we still have like 3 games left. Whereas the one thing I find really interesting about the Debo incentive is that this is probably the week that you would want to try to see if you can get to those lines, because next week it's the Eagles, and that's going to be way tougher of a matchup to close that out, right? So for me, I love both of these picks here. Josh Johnson under on his rushing yard prop, or Debo Samuel to have 60 plus receiving yards. So Nick, it probably won't take long to vote, but we got to take a vote. I probably didn't need this much time, Nick, to figure it out, but I went with Josh Johnson. This went to be, old man under, or mall Santa. Like, you know what I mean? We're going full mall Santa on this one. So, all right, Josh Johnson under 22.5 rushing yards. I mean, we'll feel good about even adding as 17.5 if that's what we have to do to make sure that we get the best line for our same game part, or our parlay for the day. So 2 quarterback rushing props so far. Bo Nix over 13.5 rushing yards. That is the one from Nick. Chris, you are on Josh Johnson under 17.5 or 22.5 rushing yards, whatever is good. All right. Now, before we round it out, I got a couple touchdown props that I do like for the Christmas Day slate. But if you want access to Action Pro projections, make sure to sign up for an annual Okay. All right. I went a little chalky with these touchdown props. Honestly, this slate, just given with the backup quarterbacks, it just wasn't showing a ton of value for me. So, guys, I went with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Please don't judge me here. But I mean, I feel like I hate to use this analogy of he's due, but man, like, he should have had that touchdown last week versus the Steelers. I think this is going to be a matchup where he sees at least 10 plus targets. Vikings, they play zone, top 10 rate, highest rate of 2 high safety. St. Brown leads the Lions by like a large margin in targets per route run versus those coverages. And Raybon, you mentioned this last week, the Vikings on the Touchdown Show pod, because the Vikings defense has been pretty strong, allowing touchdowns specifically to tight ends and wide receivers over the last 6 games. Neither position has scored on them. And the last time they did allow a touchdown to a wide receiver and a tight end, it was against Detroit. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown to score a touchdown on that Vikings defense. I'm going to go back to that Commanders-Cowboys game, though. I thought Debo Samuel touchdown is screaming to me right here, because Raybon, you brought this up. Like, Dallas just been completely terrible against wide receiver 2 and wide receiver in general, right? Like, they've allowed the most touchdowns to wide receivers. Debo leads the Commanders in targets for run versus zone. Josh Johnson, obviously, at quarterback, I don't want any part of him trying to be a downfield hero here. I want him just making short range passes rather with a ton of yards after carry. And then of course you brought up the incentive part. Like I don't think that he's going to necessarily score 2 touchdowns in this game, but it is sitting there around 16-1. So there is kind of that ladder incentive, and I'd much rather try to get it in this week than in week 18 where we don't know who the quarterback is, and you're facing an Eagles defense that is much stronger than the Cowboys defense. So, all right, guys, we got to take a vote here. Are we going to round this out with Amon-Ra St. Brown for an anytime touchdown or Deebo Samuel anytime touchdown? So let's take a vote.
All right, graphic.
Sun God, baby.
I saw Sun God. Okay. All right. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, anytime touchdown. That is how we are going to round out this parlay. Right now, when I'm looking at the parlay odds, so I just want to recap what we got. So we got Bo Nix, rush yards over 13.5. We're going to fade Josh Johnson under 17.5 rushing yards or under 23.5, wherever you're getting. But either way, anything over 15.5, we're basically feeling pretty good about the under on the rushing yard prop. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, anytime touchdown. Right now, I'm seeing these three props around plus 650 at FanDuel. It's about 680 at Bet365. Honestly, guys, I like this one as a safer parlay, but I love all these props that we gave out today. Right now, if we parlay all six, 63-1 at FanDuel, I'm seeing 72-1 at Bet365. Nick, how are we feeling about a Christmas Day 6-leg parlay, maybe instead of a 3-legger?
Yeah, I'm definitely betting all six. I love all six of these. I mean, I think the Josh Johnson one is. I put it into the Bet What Happens live model using Chris's projections here. And right, because that gives up me the full distribution of everything expected. I'm getting like 73% under 17.5. Now, if you're getting like a 22.5 or a 24.5, I'm getting like 90% under. So I feel really good about that leg. And obviously, I feel good about my 2 legs. Gilles, I love your 2 legs, especially with Raybon taking the 60 plus on Deebo. So you guys are correlated there. Full 6 leg, I think, is fantastic. 72-1. What a great Christmas present.
Raybon, what are you thinking about this parlay as just for the whole day to be able to sweat something like that for all 3 games? Because that's the one thing too, is I feel like we have like a little bit of everything from each game here.
Yeah, I love it because it's just like you're saying, okay, Josh Johnson's not going to run and he's just going to throw to Deebo. And then like everyone runs on the Chiefs. So like, yeah, I love it. And then Sun God, I mean, this guy is like, this guy should have had 2 touchdowns on like the same play or in back-to-back plays, and he got both overturned. I mean,
yes,
like it's just screaming at you. And the Lions are going to probably be eliminated from the playoffs. So they just need to kind of play for pride here. And Amon-Ra is like the leader of that team and that offense. So they're going to try to get him in the end zone. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to say too, is we've seen even from previous years, like Dan Campbell, like when they were even eliminated, remember even week 18, that couple of years ago against the Packers, they were eliminated. They still went balls to the walls against that team just to kind of keep the momentum and keep the vibes up. So, all right. So
the Joe, official, maybe we need to add like a Dan Skipper receiving touchdown to that parlay, just as like a little Amon-Ra hedge.
Well, the game that I would start looking at crazy long shots would be that Broncos side, man, because I know that they're gonna like Tyler Beatty, Michael Bandy, Nate Atkins, Adam Prentice could just score a random touchdown.
Adam Prentice, that's the good one. That's the one. That's the one right there. He's been on the field, so that's the one.
Let's get out of here. But before we do, let's just recap this parlay and then we'll get out of here. So the official Action Island Christmas Day parlay is Bo Nix rush yards over 13.5, Josh Johnson under 17.5 rushing yards, and Amon-Ra St. Brown anytime touchdown. You can get that right now at plus 650 at FanDuel or plus 680 at Bet365. Or if you just want to tail all 6 picks that we gave out today, you can get that right now at 72-1 at Bet365 and 63-1 at FanDuel. So that is all for us. Thank you for watching Action Island for our Christmas Day football parlay. We'll be back on the island next Monday to wrap up week 17 for our final Action Island of the regular season. Nick, you'll be on the show with me. We got Rams and Falcons for Monday Night Football. So that should be, I think it's going to be a half decent matchup. So on behalf of Nick Giffen, Chris Raybon, and myself, aloha. Have a great holiday and bon chance.